I'm Travis Wuertz of Wuertz Machine Works, and well, basically just playing around with the integral I started Josh Smith's hammer in. Anyway, see if you can kind of get on this blade. I got a little bit of a setup. It ain't hard to set up, but I just kind of got it clamped on here. The magnet's holding it, but mainly since I'm going to be putting pressure in this area, I don't want to hinge off of this and pull this up. I just don't have a whole lot of surface on the magnet. And I have an angle set to actually grind the bevels in. This is the first time I've actually done it, so well, we'll see what happens. I figure at least make a video, and if it works, great, I got a video. Anyway, these are stops that I made and will eventually offer fairly soon. So I'm starting my bevel there. Now I'm going to track this up just a little bit, just to cover my wheel. And I can zero my indicator. It's semi-arbitrary right now. There's about 20,000. And when cutting with the small wheel, I find just go nice and slow and let it cut. This will probably be kind of a boring video for everybody because it is kind of slow, but it doesn't take too long. And this is kind of a teaser anyway, since this is really just me figuring out what I'm doing. A thing to mention here is that there's climbing cuts, or cutting with this small wheel is a lot like cutting with a mill. And there's climbing cuts and traditional cuts. You can see with the way the belt rotation is going that this wheel would like to climb up to the bolster. Well, now when setting stops, yeah, it's probably a little bit harder to explain just talking without drawing a picture, but the direction that you feed in would be important. Now I kind of have a center line drawn here. Now I can start to see that I want to move my stop a little bit. And I can also kind of see that my angle is not exactly perfect. But I also know that this blade is very thick right now. So my angle is probably fairly close to correct. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to back this off, and I'm going to readjust my stop so it cleans up better. Take a look in here. And you can see, even though I'm just barely cutting the angle, I'm barely kissing this. And so I want to push this way, change my stop. But to do that, I want to feed out and feed in, so I'm not doing it. And I'll go ahead and turn it off, so in case I am, because since this is going here, this would want to suck in. So I moved it out just a couple turns to move that in, and now I'm going to go back to my zero, meaning I'm cutting in this way. If I were to move my stop here, it would want to climb up, or anyway. Having rigid stops for this is very important. I'll offer these stops soon. There's a lot of stuff that I need to figure out on how to do it safely, which isn't safe, but basically before I direct somebody else to do something, I want to have done it myself first. That's bringing my grind back nicely. Now, nice thing with this digital, it doesn't really matter where I go to or if I'm centered on this. When I flip the blade over and cut, if I go to the same number on the digital, I'm going to be perfectly centered. And I've almost cleaned up my whole bolster. Oh, and this blade is already hard, by the way. Kind of purpose being is you really don't want to have any warpage happening with all this removal in weird places. Very good likelihood of warping. So if you're doing an integral like this, of course drill your holes and anything else you need to do before hard. But be careful about doing too much. Until you heat sink. Now, if I back this stop off, I got to be real careful. I'm just cutting in a little bit deeper on that bolster. What you can't see is that I have a little bit of my stop is adjustable with a little lead screw. And you can see I've cleaned up all the way to there now. Now I'm going to shut it off, and I'm going to pull this off of here. And I'm going to hit 0 because that's where I stopped. Now, this should be basically our bevel put in. Let me pull it down. So now, what I got to do is flip it over. I have a little key stock under here just to keep stuff from shifting. Like I've shown in the videos before, yeah, there's some debris on the table, but it wants to go down to the magnets. So I'm flipping this over and I'm going edge up. And then what I did on my setup before is I want my cutting edge to be perpendicular to this wheel. So I'm just using a key stock. And I'm holding up against the edge and I'm checking and getting the same spacing as I had before, which was basically flush. Which I believe is there. So now, and what I really should have done, should do, whatever, is mark a line on the blade to know where to stop. So now that I got that set, I actually have to move my digital out of the way, but it'll be repeatable. just so I can back this off far enough, because I didn't really think of what I was doing. And I don't want to move the rest of my setup, but I got to clear my bolster. And then I got to move this stop. Now this stop needs to travel to the end of the blade to clear. And this stop needs to be set up somewhere fairly short, or slightly short of where my other line is, because I can, if you see that, I can adjust it. But I need to have my adjustment to be able to feed in. So I'm going to screw this lead screw out so I can back it up. And I'm going to move this, oh, somewhere in there, because I can play with this. Now, well, let me put this back and check, make sure I didn't move anything. Okay, that looks good. Like I said, since I'm putting pressure here, I'm camming off here, there's not a whole lot holding it back here. So I'm just going to put a vice grip there. And this keyway, I just kind of stuck down here to give the magnet a little bit so it doesn't push down, but making sure that it can't, that I'm not going to grind down to this to where this grabs. I'm not going to go that far, but that could be a safety thing. I'll move it kind of out here. Anyway, so now let's see what happens. I got to put my digital back, or I can bring this in a little closer. Put my digital back, snug that up, and my lines look like they're going to be pretty close. So now all my cuts are going to be traveling this way now. I don't want to start here and travel against. I always want to go into the cut. And you always want to feed into the cut. So here I don't want to feed here, I want to feed back here. And I can see right now I need to move my stops further, but that's easy to do later. And this is the side where I would adjust it, because it's a traditional cut, you'd be feeding into it when you change your stop. But it'll be a lot easier to see once I've made or ground a little bit more of the bevel. And I really like cool mist and stuff, and especially with it being a hard blade, not wanting to screw up temper, as I'd probably run a cool mist. Now I'm going to turn this up just a little bit. As I'm using a little bit bigger wheels, I can go back with a smaller wheel. The nice thing about running a bigger wheel is you're not pushing the bearings quite so hard to do this. I'm taking off a pretty big bite, but I'm just letting it cut, because this operation is more like an end mill than it is a surface grinder. Well, I guess that's debatable. Now, except for the noise of the cool mist, I really would be running one. But I'm also trying to talk over it, and now maybe that's not that important anyway, but I don't seem to be building with too much heat. That's coming in. I'm going to move my stop out just a little bit. And I'm going to have to go more, I know, but I'm actually getting pretty close to where I stopped on the other side. Well, 12,000. I'm going to back this out a little bit more. There's basically my zero. I'm also gonna, oh yeah, that would be this one. Just to make sure I get my tip. Now obviously you can see that it's not making the fade on my tip, but that can be done manually. Well, by hand on a flattener disc. Now I guessed at my angle here, and this is pretty crude, it's just shimmed. I just changed the angle of the surface grinding attachment. And I've thought about incorporating an angle plate and stuff like that, but the main goal was to really do a surface grinding attachment, and something that the surface grind with and paper tangs and other stuff. I didn't want to compromise the accuracy by adding too many things. Now, that actually is looking pretty good. My edge is a little thick, and I need to come in further. So I'm gonna, as I go here, now I'm gonna come out because I don't want to be messing with too many things and do something to make it grab and go that way. What it is, my jam nut is just a little sticky. Back that off a little bit. Make this cut. Up to my stop. And that's almost got it all cleaned up. I'm going to go a little more. Now, if I would have actually scribed a line of where my shoulder on my first one was exact, then it'd be easy just to come to match. Right now I'm just eyeballing it, but that looks actually pretty good. I mean, my angle is not quite steep enough, but it also depends on how thin I want to make this blade. And so it's nice, it's really not too hot. But you can see, well maybe you can see, is I don't know if I'm holding it right, Wes, here. Why don't you hold it or guide, well hell, I'll just do it. As you can see, I have my bevels cut in. Now, the remainder of the tip, there's nothing to bring that in with the disc. Now, depending on the blade, or the knife that I would like to build, is my shoulders are pretty dang even. This is pretty dang even. Now, I would bring this thinner, my edge thinner, but I also have progressive grits to go, and I would clean this up. But as it looks like this could come back just a little bit more. Anyway, it works pretty slick. That's all I got, Wes. So, yeah, that's all I got.